In this tutorial, you'll learn how to admit a new patient into Wormed. Now, once you log into the account, on the left side under Quick Links, you'll see Add New Patient. Click that. And this is the new patient form. Now, you can see here that the case number is automatically generated, and it always begins with the current year and then the next numeric number for the patient to be admitted. So here you can see that the year is 2021 and the new case number is 20. Now, Wormed automatically assumes that you're admitting a patient for the current year and date, but you can also admit a patient from a previous year, or if, for example, you received a patient yesterday, but you're just now putting it into Wormed, you can also change the date. And to do that, you click in the case year. This will change the year. And notice here, if I change it to a past year, the reference number turns to red, so you're sure to see that the case number is not current. Let's say we're going to put back into the current date, and let's say you did receive a patient yesterday and you're just now putting it in, so you could click here and choose from the drop-down menu the date that you received the patient. Now you can see here in this panel that there are reference numbers and a microchip number. Now, these are just other identifying numbers. They're not necessarily required. But for example, let's look at the reference number. The reference number is a field that could help identify a patient that had a number assigned to it from somewhere else. For example, if the patient was brought to you by Fish and Wildlife or some other animal service where it was assigned a different case number, you could add that number in this field. Also, if it was brought to you by a different Wormed user and instead of transferring the record electronically, they printed it out, you could actually type in that case number from that account. So this field is pretty amendable to any way you wish to use it. Here for the microchip number, this also is not a required field, but it is a field that can help you to identify a patient that has been microchipped. Now here in the species panel is where you're going to identify your species. Now the Wormed species database includes every species in the world. So as soon as you begin typing the species or common name of the animal being admitted, Wormed is going to generate an auto-suggestion list of what you're typing in. It makes it very easy for you to choose the correct species name. Should also be aware that Wormed's species list generator gets smarter as you continue to input names into your account. So the more often you're adding in a certain name, Wormed is going to generate the names that are most frequently typed in. So here I'm going to choose my red-shouldered hawk, and here under number of patients, this field allows you to designate how many patients you want to create. So for example, I'm going to be admitting, let's say, 2 red-shouldered hawks. And in this case, Worm will create 2 separate red-shouldered hawk patient records. So let's move on to the rescuer contact information panel. So here you'll want to fill in the appropriate fields with the contact information of the person or the organization who brought in the patient. You can also include notes about that rescuer, which could be helpful for you to know. And by including their information, you effectively keep a history of all the animals that that person or organization has brought into your organization. So here there are 2 tabs. There's New Rescuer and there's a Search tab. So if the person has never brought in an animal before, you'd probably want to stay on this tab. And you can go ahead and type in their first name, their last name, their phone number, their email address, and their physical address, the city and state, the postal code. Now, this information is all optional, but it is useful to have. You can also even add notes about the rescuer. If the rescuer has brought in animals before, click the Search tab and type in their identifying information. In the drop-down list, you can choose the correct name and all of their information will populate the Rescuer tab. Now, if the rescuer decides to make a donation to your organization, you can record that information here. So let's say that this person donated $25. You could also add any comments about that donation if you'd like to. And then here, the intake panel, this is where you're going to be required to add information about the patient or patients being admitted. The first thing to note is the admitted by field. That is you. That is the name of the person who's creating this record. So I'm going to type in my name here. And here, transported by, that's not a required field, but if the person who transported the animal is different from the rescuer, you would write their name here. And then under address found, if the address where the animal was found is different from the rescuer details, then you could type in their information here. However, if it is the same, then you can click this blue button, and you can see here that the address from the rescuer contact just gets transferred over to this intake panel. Also important is the date that the animal was brought in. WORMed assumes that the animal was found on the day that it was rescued. However, sometimes that might be different. So if you do need to change it, maybe they were found yesterday and had to spend the night with the rescuer, then you could click on it and choose the date from the drop-down menu. And here, the reasons for admission. This is why the animal is now in your care. So you will type in, perhaps it was hit a window, and any care that was given by the rescuer, and any notes about the rescue if you want to add these too. After you fill out the intake panel, then you can create the record. However, before you do that, you can designate what you want WORM to do with it after it's created. So it defaults to the add new patient, but you have two other options you can choose from. And you can click in this area and then choose from the drop-down menu to go back to an Add New Patient screen, to go directly to the patient record once you've created it, or you can bulk update all of the patients at the same time. So most commonly you're going to go either to the Add New Patient or to the View Patients record. So here we're going to stay on this default. I'm going to click the green button, Create Record. And you'll see up here in the green panel that 2 records have been created. And this is because we had 2 red-shouldered hawks, if you remember. And that is how you add a new patient in WORMed.